Prima deve ricordarsi, il trabajo hará sentir incómodo a Benji y tal vez quiera volver.
Hello, others that are here. I noticed, Louis, you're here. I was thinking maybe you could talk about the CODA group tonight. I don't know if you can hear me, Louis.
And the owners don't see it because the hair goes right back over it. It's all in one piece. It's gonna take a minute to get some around.
Se necesita un ojo experto para determinar qué es pelo y qué es pelo.
Okay, Karen.
Yeah.
I just sent it. I just sent a Word version of it.
Okay, perfect. I'll try to download that and then send it out to everyone so they can have it.
Yeah, I'd rather they have the PDF, but that will work, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know why my computer's refusing to connect it. And like I said, I kept downloading or reducing the file size, but every time I reduced the file size, it just made it more and more blurry. Now you gave me two different PowerPoints. Which one did you want to use?
I want to use both, but we're going to start with not with the photo one, with the other one.
Okay. Just one second. I'm going to upload this low vision. Yeah, I don't understand what's happening because it's refusing to. I just want to do it that way. All right. So you wanted to start with
Called LV Home Mods and Lighting.
okay, LV Home Mods and Lighting. Yeah, and then just tell me, Monica, as we go along, when you want it to be changed to the next slide, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, how to advance from one slide to the next.
Yeah, just tell me when you want to, because since it's on my computer instead of doing the app, then I'm just going to need to do it. If you just want to say next, I'll try to figure it out as we go along.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's looking good.
Oh, good. We'll give everybody a few minutes to get here. But thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm quite excited because I do quite a few home evaluations and I don't always know exactly what I should look for low vision. But after our emails, it makes me realize I really should be calling in a low vision specialist. And so what I just sent out to one is the registry.
So we'll see what everybody thinks. It might be that these two measures are, you know, just far too detailed for what your practice, you know. I don't know if they're a good fit for your practice or not, but it'll certainly give you an idea of things to think about, and there might be pieces of it you can use, you know.
Most definitely. Well, I don't know. I just feel like anyone who's aging, especially since I turned 40, I recognize the differences for lighting. So
Yeah,
I almost feel like anyone over 40 should be taking this into consideration.
Exactly. Yeah, and we'll talk about that tonight, just the typical age-related changes that result in need for more light.
Yeah, that are absolutely no fun, I may say. Do you have products as well that you recommend?
Products?
Yeah, as far as like certain sort of lighting sorts of things.
Yeah, we can talk about that too.
Oh, good. Good.
When we get rolling, will you put that on in slideshow version?
You know what? I've been trying. I will try to do that. It might not let me since it's got the meeting up, unless I make the go to meeting smaller. Yeah, it's not.
Click on Skype show up there in the bar. Yeah.
There we go.
That looks good.
Perfect. Oops. I'm gonna make it small for just a minute so I can see what we're doing as far as go to meeting. But yeah, we'll get that. We'll start maybe in a couple minutes.
Okay.
One thing that I'm going to be doing too is sometimes there's feedback on mics. So if there's feedback, I might minimize this long enough to turn off whoever mic's giving feedback. Because sometimes just if there's background noise, somebody's mic will give feedback and cause it all to echo.
Yeah, you're sounding a little echoey to me. How am I sounding?
You sound good to me. How's everybody else hearing us?
Hi, this is Jamie. You guys sound fine.
Oh, good. Yeah, I don't know what that extra noise. Oh, Annette. That looks like Annette's it's coming through Annette's. Hmm. Oh, hello, Billy. It says Billy's here from Peru. Glad you could make it. Oh, good. Hello. And then Louis, are you going to be on your phone, or do you want to do it through the chat and I can talk? I'm hoping your phone will work for the CODA group, subgroup. And I'm looking at my chat right now in case you have anything to say. When we do this presentation, though, I'm going to have my chat closed so that I can do full screen of this presentation. So if anybody sees something in the chat box, if they could read it, that would be much appreciated, because otherwise, for those who don't have a microphone on their computer, they won't be able to join the conversation. Lou, your vocal's not going through, huh? Okay, so if someone could keep an eye on that and read anything that is on the chat, that would be appreciated, so that way everyone can communicate. Lily, it seems like your phone would work. Well, I'm going to introduce everyone, I'm going to introduce our speaker. With us today is Monica Perlmutter. Can you tell me how to pronounce your last name, Monica?
Perlmutter.
Perlmutter, from Washington University, and she specializes in home environmental assessment and modifications for individuals with age-related vision loss. And I think that's something that we should all have in our practices as home mod therapists. I know I don't have as much knowledge of this as I should. I also just emailed everyone copies of her assessments. And then do you want to talk about the assessments, Monica?
So, yeah, so actually I have a specialty certification in low vision and work mainly with adults and older adults, but occasionally some of the younger kids at the other end of the lifespan. And I know you all are very interested in home environment. That's certainly one of the many things that we do with our clients, along with working with them on visual strategies and training in optical devices and you know, just a whole gamut of things that's available to people with vision loss. But is Jackie on the line yet?
Jackie?
Jackie Schaefer?
No, I don't. She's not here yet.
Okay, but she, I guess she's the one who she does home care here in St. Louis and is great about referring to me and, you know, likewise back and forth. So that's how I got connected with this group. So there's actually, in terms of tonight, you want to just, I can kind of, if you want to move to the next slide.
Okay. And then again, I'm going to put this on slideshow, so I might not be able to see the chat. So if anyone could read the chats, that would be cool.
So I'm going to give you just a little bit of background and then talk about how aging and, you know, some of the key low vision diagnoses have an impact on lighting needs. And then get into, you know, 3 ideas for assessment that you might want to consider. And the HELA is one that I developed, and then the low vision, it should be low vision home safety assessment, was developed by Beth Barstow, who's at the University of Alabama. So you can see her name in there. And then I've got mainly, you know, a quick overview of lighting principles, and then a series of just photographs of just ideas of simple things that you can do in the home environment. So, did you want to introduce people before we got rolling, Karen?
Well, usually, basically, did you want to meet everyone who's here, or usually you just sort of go along with?
No, I might have misunderstood you. So, I guess Karen's given me kind of an idea. Is everybody doing home health, or do we have people in other areas of practice?
I'm doing home modifications. I'm not doing any home health at all.
Ah, and so it's mainly, are you all mainly in private practice doing home mod?
I do. I'm in acute care.
I work in a SNF.
You work in a SNF. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a new grad, and I'm also working in a SNF and looking into some community-based practice as well.
Okay, great. Okay, so that helps me. Is there anybody else who wanted to chime in, just so I kind of have an idea?
I am the one that works in a SNF, but I also do a lot with Home Fit in Massachusetts here.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
But I've heard that. I have a daughter that's an OT in Boston. Okay, so should we go ahead and go to the next slide, Karen? All right. So the first couple slides here, just to kind of give you an idea of how, you know, as our population ages, we're going to be having a lot of older adults who have vision impairment. Some of the key causes are, refractive errors that aren't corrected, cataracts that haven't been, the lenses that haven't been replaced, and then really the top three that I see in terms of age-related vision loss are glaucoma, macular degeneration, and diabetic retinopathy. And macular degeneration is the most common. I also see a lot of people with, corneal transplants gone bad, and optic neuritis, and giant cell arteritis, and stroke, and just all kinds of things that can happen with the visual system. And next slide, please. Okay, so you can just see, this gives you kind of an idea of really how large the numbers are, and in red you see literally the millions of people in the U.S. who have age-related vision loss and low vision. Okay, a lot of people with cataracts we don't see because they just do so well. It's so highly operable. But occasionally I do see people who have a cataract removal, an implant procedure kind of go south. So, all right, that's good for that slide. So would it help to kind of go over these in just a little bit of detail? I don't want to.
I know it would help me. I don't know how other people do it.
Okay. All right. Hearing no objection, I'll move ahead. So macular degeneration is the most common. There are two forms, the wet and the dry form. The dry form is the very most common. It occurs in about 90% of people. And basically it affects the macula, which is the tiny structure on the retina that's responsible for seeing fine detail, contrast, and for color. So tiny structure, big job. When the macular tissue is affected, debris accumulates, and it causes blind spots, which affect central vision only. And there can be, the debris can accumulate sort of lightly on the macula, and we call that a relative scotoma, or it can be pretty dense. And so it's good for us, for me as an OT working in this area, to kind of know, because if it's one of those lighter dusting of debris, scotomas, then if I can get enough light on the subject, a lot of times they will be able to use that part of their macula to see what they want to see. But, long story short, in terms of impact on need for lighting, these folks need a lot of lighting, and more than you would think, as well as contrast, high levels of contrast to make the most of the vision that they have.
So is that operable? The macular degeneration?
Pardon me?
Is the macular degeneration operable?
It is not operable. There are treatments, though. I guess we should look at operable broadly. There are injections that can, most of the treatments are directed toward the wet version, which is what the minority have. And so there's a variety of things they can do to stop the bleeding and leaking process that goes on with different injections. There's a new technology available that I'm working with also. These patients that have a miniature telescope implanted in their eye.
Wow.
And it's really amazing. Yeah, it's been approved by the FDA for about 10 years. It's being done all over the country. The cool thing is that when the FDA wrote the protocol, they required that OTs be involved in the process. And so there are a number of teams that have developed, from coast to coast, really. And so, that's for people who are end-stage macular degeneration, though, not, it's kind of a last-ditch effort. So, Okay, moving to glaucoma. This is so macular degeneration affects central vision. This affects peripheral vision, and then in advanced cases, the central vision can be affected as well. And so, for a variety of reasons, there can be an increase in pressure inside the eye, and this results in a compression of the optic nerve. And so, it's something that older adults really need to monitor because it's kind of a silent condition where you don't really realize that you're missing, a big chunk of your peripheral vision. And in terms of lighting, they can experience problems with glare and difficulty with dark light adaptation. So, pulling into a dark garage on a bright sunny day, or walking out of a movie theater, those kinds of things. And there's ways that you can help people learn to accommodate for that, and so that's a good thing to check on. They also have a need for increased illumination and contrast. Okay, next slide, Karen. Diabetic retinopathy is one of the many complications of diabetes, and in this one, the retinal blood vessels weaken and leak, and there can be swelling around the macula. It can affect both central and peripheral vision, and these folks also have need for more lighting, more contrast, and have difficulty with glare and the dark light adaptation like we were talking about with glaucoma. Cataracts, I don't see a ton of, but we're all, as we're sitting here in our 40s, 50s, maybe older, developing cataracts as we speak. The lens just continues to lay down proteins and yellow and gets, less pliable. And so this affects your color, your color detection, as well as people complain of light scattering and poor night vision and glare problems. And there can be need for more contrast too. But this is pretty easily fixed. You just kind of have to wait until it's bad enough to warrant, getting a new intraocular lens implanted.
And those are usually successful?
Usually, yes. Very, very highly successful.
Nice.
Okay, so now we should think about what is low vision in terms of a definition. And Mary Warren has a good one that I like from an OT perspective. It's really impairment that's severe enough to interfere with the performance of daily activities, but allows some usable vision. So we have something to work with. So I am typically not working with someone who has no light perception, no usable vision. That's really a different skill set and area of expertise. And there are some OTs who have the training to do that, but I actually went to the University of Alabama and got their graduate certificate in low vision rehab, and then also have the certification from AOTA. But it doesn't cover the blindness population. So in order to be covered by Medicare, our services to be covered by Medicare, they have to have 20/70 or worse in the better eye, and that's corrected vision. And moderate to severe kind of ranges from 20/70 to 2400. But I certainly see people with worse vision than that.
So usually, do most of your referrals come from some sort of a vision therapist or an ophthalmologist?
They come from ophthalmologists and low vision optometrists, from other OTs, from families. We have a couple local agencies that I might get people from, and then also neuro-ophthalmologists.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so let's talk about normal, typical age-related changes. And so even if you're seeing people that don't have a low vision diagnosis, they're aging and they are experiencing changes, structural changes that affect the amount of light that can project back to the retina. Their pupils get smaller. They don't, the size, in and of itself gets smaller. It does not dilate as much. The degree to which the pupil dilate decreases. And then the lens and the cornea have age-related changes that cause light to scatter and glare intolerance. And there's this slowing of dark light adaptation. And that, we want to have a heads up on that, because if they're coming into a dark garage and they're getting out of their car quickly, it can be a setup for falls or something like that. Loss of accommodation refers to what we experience in our 40s and 50s when we just can't, we have to hold things a little bit farther away, because of the changes in our lens. And our focus doesn't change quite as quickly. And then there's just general decreases in visual acuity and contrast. Visual field reduces, and color perception. And some people can experience floaters and drafts. So I don't know if Karen was saying at the beginning of this that she's already noticing, even at her young age,
Yes, thank you.
that she needs a little bit more light. And I definitely have noticed that too.
Yeah, that's no fun.
Okay. All right. So good segue to the next slide. There's an increased need for light by age 45 to 50. By age 60, the lens, some sources say that the lens transmits only 20% of light of what it did when you were 20.
Wow.
That's a little sobering. And the older adult eye requires 2 to 3 times more light. So it's something we need to be thinking about with all of our clients. Okay. So there are lots of good environmental assessment tools, but they don't necessarily, some of them, certainly are thinking about lighting or contrast, but it's pretty general. And it's not enough detail for those of us working in low vision, for sure, to meet the needs of our clients. And in addition, they're developed using the researcher's expert opinion. And particularly Beth's measure, she started with focus groups with people with low vision and learning from them about, what environmental challenges they experience. And mine had some input from people with vision loss to a degree, but not as much as Beth did. So that was a really neat model. And then she went on to develop her assessment and test it. Are you all using standard home environment assessments in your practice?
I'm not using anything as far as vision assessments.
But I'm talking about home environment.
I'm doing basic home.
Standard home environment. Are you using kind of facility-based assessments or just sort of your clinical reasoning?
You can go.
I use more clinical reasoning. How about everyone else?
While you go. Yeah, the tie downs. Go Pete.
Anna says mostly clinical reasoning.
Okay. So let's go to the next slide. I guess I'll make a pitch for really looking into. There's a lot of measures that are out there that you might find helpful. The SAFER in particular was designed to assess older adult home environments and function within the space. There's the Westmead, the housing enabler. All of these are fairly well developed, and it's a good idea when you can to use a standard measure so that we can really start to gather outcomes about what we're doing. You all have a really great group here. It sounds like you might be able to join forces and pick one or two that really would work in your settings and see what you come up with in terms of outcomes.
Are these your top 3 And you didn't send these when you sent them.
Are you going poop?
These are, I don't know if these are the top three, but
What?
these are three good examples. Let's go to the next slide. I can't remember if I have a couple more or not. Okay, so they're validated and reliable tools, and they include some aspects of environmental visibility. Oops.
Are you coming?
Sorry about that.
Go back. But certainly not enough detail. Now, the assessments that I'm going to show you may be just way too much detail for what you need. It might be something that you would pull out, once in a while, rely on some of the more general home environment assessments for your routine assessment, and then when you've got somebody with low vision, you could pull one of these out.
Well,
But we're looking at things like light source type and wattage and placement of lighting and switch access and window coverings and contrast and all kinds of things that are really relevant to our population.
I think
Was there a question I missed? Yeah, sorry.
I was just thinking, even just having an overview of this helps us to be more aware of what we need to look for as well.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see what's next. So the other thing that Beth and I really feel like is pretty key is you want to assess the environment in the context of the task that they're performing, and you all may do that. I'm certainly I'm measuring light, for example, at the point of the task where they do it. Where do they typically read? Where do they typically do their diabetic, regimen? Let's see what the lighting is on their stovetop, things like that, as well as other high stakes areas like stairs in the bathroom and that kind of thing. And think about, what are the features that are facilitating or inhibiting their performance, in terms of lighting and contrast and these visibility issues, along with the other physical attributes of the setting. And then I've already made my pitch for using a standardized tool because, we are really being called as a profession to demonstrate our outcomes, and we need our clinical reasoning to use those tools, but we've got to have some kind of consistency and approach for us to really do a good job with that. So, okay, what's next?
We just talked to someone else recently who does home mods, and she's developed an app for home mods that also you could use to track outcomes.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you know of for this? Because, that's the thing. It'd be nice to be able, even when I use standardized testing, I don't submit that anywhere.
Right.
And so, is there anything you know of that could be used as that?
Where data could be submitted to kind of a registry or something?
Yeah, or an app where it would automatically be submitted?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, but I don't think so for this particular focus. But that's a great direction to head. Sure.
On the side in the chat, it says that some people are using the iHope. And
yes.
A couple people, it looks like. And then someone else posted a link for rebuilding together assessments.
Yes, the iHope was actually developed by Susie Stark, who is a colleague of mine at WashU.
Oh, nice.
And that's a little bit different kind of environmental assessment. It's certainly looking at performance of daily activities in context and what are the barriers that are limiting performance in those areas. But that's a great measure to consider as well.
Sorry about that. I was looking at what everybody was writing and hit the wrong thing. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay, next slide. All right, so we're going to go over the light meter assessment first, and then I'll give you a quick overview of the other two, and then we'll get on to showing you some examples of different strategies. So next slide. And we've got a little case that we've threaded through here. So this is pretty typical of someone that I see, an older lady who lives alone in a single-level house with a basement. She's been there for years. Not a whole lot of social support, but she does have 2 nieces and very strong, motivated personality. And so we're going to apply some of this to her.
You ready for the next one?
Yeah. Yes, please. Okay, so she's got some arthritis and hypertension and takes medication. She's had macular degeneration for 9 years. In her left eye, she has the dry version. In her right eye, it's converted to wet, which can happen, and she's had some injections to help stabilize that. She had intraocular lens replacement for cataract 6 years ago, and she takes vitamins. Okay, you can do the next slide. She's getting around fine and has good physical function and cognition. No real major red flags in terms of depression or anything like that, and she's had 1 fall. Okay. So in terms of her visual function, in her right eye, she's got 2180. In her left, she's got 2300. That's her intermediate visual acuity, so maybe, 3 feet away, 1 to 3 feet away. Her near acuity is a little bit worse, but in the same ballpark. She definitely has a reduction in her contrast sensitivity, and so it's hard for her to see low contrast hazards like cracks in the sidewalk or to hit a light switch, that's white against a white wall, things like that. It might be hard for her to see facial features because those are low contrast targets as well. She has difficulty seeing, like distinguishing black from navy pairs of pants, things like that. In her right eye, she has a relative central scotoma, so that's one where if we really get the light up level, the lighting level up, she may have an easier time of using her vision in that eye. With her her left eye, she has a dense central scotoma. She's sensitive to glare. She's got the dark light adaptation problems, and her left eye is dominant. Okay. All right, so she's been referred, and now we're going to see what we're going to do with her with these light meter assessments. So I find a light meter to be invaluable. Let's go to the next slide. This is a device that you can use to measure lighting at the point of task. It measures in units of foot candles or lux. The literature mainly reports lighting levels in lux, and so I use that. And I find it really to be helpful because it allows for objective measurement, and you can compare reading with standards that are available to us, and the clients just really get into knowing more, what the numbers are and what the base, I can show them what the baseline is, and then when I introduce the lighting, task lighting modification or whatever it is we're working on, show them the difference. Light meters are pretty cheap. You can get one on Amazon, that one on the top, sometimes as low as $15. The one in the lower picture I worked with in the context of a research project, and that one was $250. And I compared them sort of side by side, and really there wasn't much difference. So
Wow.
Go to the next slide. So I'll tell you more about where you can find these, and also we'll talk a little bit about light meter apps in a minute. So the key with this is to measure at the point of task. So I want her to be this is a picture of her at her kitchen table where she sits all the time. She loves to cook, and so we have a cookbook, and where would she place it? And I'm placing the sensor on the page. After she's positioned in a typical fashion, I'm being careful not to cast shadows with my hand or my body placement. And I'm going to record the reading, which you can see there is 403 lux. Okay, let's see what's next. And then I'm going to go around in areas that she's concerned about or that she perceives as trouble spots. I can prioritize. And so she has trouble seeing her microwave controls. And part of that is the numbers are small and they're not really high contrast, and so you can see I've marked those. But the lighting's a little bit low is quite a bit low for someone with her eye condition. I'm measuring, how much light is cast on the person's face in the bathroom mirror. Go to the next slide. And then I measure lighting usually at 3 points, like top, middle, and bottom, landing in particular. And look at that. Her lighting at the bottom of the step is 21, which is really just cave-like and not safe, And so I can use that as kind of an educational tool to just point out that your lighting here is super, super low, and we need to get more contrast at the foot of the steps and maybe see what we can do to get more lighting in that location as well. Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay. The question is, if you're, let's say it's winter time, maybe it gets dark earlier in the day, doesn't the outside light coming in affect your reading on the when you're taking the assessment?
Absolutely, it does. And
so
I'm sorry. Realistically, I can't get there, at night. But that's something that we talk about. It's like, whoa, if in broad daylight, she's got some windows in the basement or whatever. We need to think about lighting on cloudy days. We need to think about lighting at night. I may not be assessing it in detail just because typically don't go there in the evening, but that's certainly something we talk about and plan for as we're working on our intervention strategies. Okay, good question. So there are a number of sources that we can use to help us. These are in terms of what do we compare our readings to, right? So these are general lighting level recommendations that the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America provides for adults. Sort of helpful, but a lot of them related to work environments. On the next slide, we have lighting level recommendations for older adults. They're presented in ranges, and these are for individuals with, without just typical older adults, not necessarily people with vision loss. And so, you can see that really not as much lighting is recommended for just general mobility, but if you're going to be doing really close work like paying bills, it needs to be up there. We have even more resources on the next slide from the literature. And this is the information I use most often. Some of these studies are, not very big sample sizes, but pretty good, consistent information about and results in terms of people with macular degeneration, for example, need upwards of 2,000 lux to maximize their reading performance. 2,000. And some people preferred levels as high as 7,500. So that's really something we need to pay attention to because it's amazing. I had a lady once who she was working with her magnifiers and she loved to read the stock results page, and that's even tinier print than the rest of the newspaper, and was very frustrated with just how cumbersome it was to use her optical devices. And she was one of the people that we got her lighting way, way up, and she could read it with her regular glasses.
Wow.
Because she just had enough, we could get enough light back through her scotomas to make a difference for her. So she was very happy. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So here's just kind of a range of what you see with our case. Certainly, big concern is we get to work on those steps. The top, middle, and the bottom. The top was even worse at 12. And then, not too bad with her mirror, the bathroom mirror, and the appliance control. But really for her, as you can see, that the recommended ranges, she's within the range for just older adults, but she's well below what's recommended for people with macular degeneration. And I can talk to her about that. And, it's a good way to use the literature. Yeah, that's fine. You can go ahead and advance. So here's kind of a side-by-side cost comparison of these two. I use the one on the left routinely because I'm just not worried about that banging around in my trunk. And if I leave it somewhere, it's not a big deal. And I checked that website not too long ago. It should be accurate. If you end up having trouble finding it, you can let me know. I can help you. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, has anyone heard of or anyone using light meter apps? Okay. There's definite pros. You can download them to your smartphone. They're free. The one that I downloaded was $2. But the best, they're mostly used for photography. The best light meter apps for application to home lighting is really not known yet. Go to the next slide and I'll show you a little experiment I did. I compared my little $15 one with my iPhone app and measured the same spot, same lighting, within 10 seconds, so it wasn't like there was a big change in anything. And sometimes the light meter that I used had a higher reading than the iPhone app, and sometimes it was lower.
That's a huge difference in a lot of
Right. It's a huge difference. Really, functionally speaking, it may not make that much difference, but it's enough. It's enough where I'm just skeptical, and I'm really comfortable with my little cheapo light meter, so I'm continuing to use that. Plus, it's hard to position the sensor where I want it with the phone app, and so it might be something I need to learn. We did a workshop at AOTA, and there was someone in the audience who really likes these apps on his iPad, and so that's another thing to explore.
Although it really
Okay.
needs to be,
Go ahead.
I would think it would really need to be something you could depend on for accuracy.
Well,
and that's
that's how I feel about it. I mean, it's not terrible if you're just a little bit off, but I just have more confidence in the light meter that I'm using.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, any light meter that you use, sometimes they'll have a freeze function on it, and so it'll freeze at, say, whatever setting. Say you want it to freeze at the highest setting. Mine kind of bounces around. They bounce around a little bit just because, lighting is not totally constant, and maybe something's moving a little, and so I still get a pretty good idea, of what the lighting level is. That gives me a great base for making recommendations.
Nice.
Okay. Any other questions before we move to the next section? Everybody hearing me okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay, good. All right. So this is the low vision home assessment that Beth Barstow developed. And let me tell you a little bit about this. There's different sections. It's very detailed. You'll see examples in the slides of the subsections that I have in red font there: entrance, kitchen, and medication management. She combines some of the home sections with in-context task performance. which I think is really a neat approach. So you kind of get a big picture of what the components, what the various sections of this assessment are, and I can show you in the next slide some of the detail. So hopefully you can see that. Here, just I guess the main thing to pay attention to is in the far left column there, you can see she's looking at lighting, the surface, the steps and the ramp, the door, as well as, you know, utilization, and then simply checking if it's adequate or not, strategies that are currently being used, comments that you might want to record, and then early on, you know, recommendations, and also obstacles and hazards that are noted at that location. So it's pretty fast, you know, convenient in terms of checkoff format, with the option to write notes as well. On the next slide.
Now, do you use this one quite a bit, Monica?
I use it for trouble spots. It's pretty long, and it's something that, you know, Beth is working on to kind of make it a little bit, maybe come up with a common form that could be used in a variety of locations. I find that in my practice I don't have time to use the whole thing, but I use it as a guide for, you know, particularly in the kitchen, office areas, desk settings where, you know, desktop settings where people are doing bills and medication management, those kinds of things. I find it helpful. Here's an example of the task environment, a task environment interaction piece, you know, where she's just looking at, can the person identify the meds? Are the label methods, you know, adequate for this person? Are they organized? Can they obtain refills? And are they administering themselves or with support? And she does that with a variety of tasks. Let's see what's next. Okay, so now we're back to, you've got, I think, that entire assessment.
Yeah, I sent it to everyone just right before our meeting, so you can check and look.
So, yeah, so it's pretty long for sure, but even just perusing it may give you a perspective on just some things to be thinking about, you know, from a visual environment perspective, in terms of lighting and contrast and organization. Those are things that we look at a lot. So here's some things that we found with Mrs. McDonnell that related to cooking. She was having problem with a number of things that you see listed there on your slide, as well as accessing phone numbers. And so we go into the kitchen located on the main level of her home. I think I've got some photos of this coming up here. So we can go to those. So those of you that do home visits, you can just kind of see, if you think about just the visual clutter and lots of stuff kind of scattered around, lots of obstacles that could be fall hazards. She's got, in terms of lighting, she just has that one single light on the ceiling there. And then she's got some natural light coming in. But oftentimes if someone's reading a recipe or they need to read a note that they wrote to themselves or a message that they took talking on the phone, they need that 5,000 lux level of lighting, and you just don't get that from a light on the ceiling. So, you know, you could use the LVHA here to kind of be ticking off things you want to make note of and remember about this kitchen environment. Okay, let's see what's next. Here's her appliance, her stove. A lot of times it's just really, people who have vision loss, they have to get really close to something to see it. And so it's not so great to have the controls in the back panel there. And so we want to do things to increase the visibility that they can see those targets at a greater distance. And I'll show you some ideas of how we do that.
You went too fast.
Yep, you can go to the next one. So, you could give some thought to, well, she had, in terms of lighting, she had that fluorescent tube lighting up in the ceiling. We could do, record the light meter measurement there and where it's positioned. Is the switch accessible? Do we see shadows or glare? What degree of contrast do we see in terms of the door, a closed door being distinguished from the door frame and the door handles? Furniture, does it blend in? How high level of contrast do we see on the appliance styles? And degree of pattern. Pattern can be a real problem for people with vision loss, just because it reduces the contrast and things can get lost on the pattern. So if they have a patterned, even a plate that has a floral pattern, they may not be able to see all their food on that plate, that sort of thing, as well as floor surfaces and countertops and things like that.
Yeah, she had a lot of patterns going on.
Pardon me?
She had a lot of patterns between her floor and everything on the wallpaper.
Absolutely.
And everything stuck up on all those notes.
Right. So, same kind of theme. I don't want to, kind of got to watch our pace here a little bit. So let's move on, because really, time is flying by here. Let's see what's next. So, whoops, the slide before that, you can go back and look on your own. Beth's gone in to sort of fill in this section, and it just gives you an idea of some of the comments and what the recommendations would be. So I thought that would be a good thing to include for you.
Wow.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to pick up the pace a teeny bit here. Next, we'll do the lighting assessment, and can go to the next slide. So, there was a great study done by, who was that? Which of these was that? Horgus, Wilms, and Baltus. And it's kind of a seminal study, I think, back in 1998. But they looked at just what people do and where they spend their time, and we all know that most older adults spend a huge amount of their time at home. And we also know from some of these other studies that home lighting does not meet recommended levels. Some of those old ones, Levitt and Cullinan and Silver, these are just great studies that show that home lighting is woefully below what's really recommended. And then there's also a lot of work that's been done to show that improved lighting increases reading acuity. I will measure with my vision chart pre and post lighting, and they can sometimes gain up to 3 lines on the vision chart. So it makes a big difference. And there was another study where they looked at study participants' ability to see obstacles, in lower versus higher lighting levels. So we've got good support to make these kind of, modifications. And let's see what's next. And these are some things that I think about when I'm doing a lighting assessment. I'm using a light meter. I'm also thinking about glare, thinking about the person's position, thinking about their reading material or other things that they're trying to look at in that position. And then another thing that I've learned from the literature and also my experience is really think about the qualitative aspects of comfort, because we know for sure from the literature that there's no one best lighting level or one best lamp. There's such a broad spectrum of what people find comfortable and preferences and that sort of thing, and we have to figure out a way to determine that. Okay. So this might be of interest. We did back in 2010 a little survey to figure out how are people assessing lighting, and only 10% were using standard home evaluations.
Wow.
And almost 40% were using agency-based measures, and so that leaves almost 50% who weren't really using, were using clinical reasoning probably. And then a low percentage was using a light meter. If we did that study now, I think I've been out talking about this enough, at least in the low vision area, that I think more people are using them. So let's go to the next slide. So that's a little bit of state of the art. So this was the focus of my OTD project that I did between 2010 and 12. And this measure has 4 sections. I'm just going to kind of give you a bird's eye view, and then I want to be sure we have time to get to the pictures at the end that I have. So there's 4 components. The pre-intervention part of the assessment, you can describe the lighting environment, and there's little checkbox formats to do that. There's a section on the quality of the lighting experience for the individual, and a place to record the light meter reading. You can take a photo if you would like. Sometimes that's helpful. And then I don't know if anybody is familiar with the MN Read acuity test. It's a vision chart that is used widely in low vision that measures speed and accuracy while the person reads sentences. So instead of like a letter chart where there's no contrast, it's a little bit more functional. And then there's a section on, so that's the pre-test, acuity test, because we're looking to see maybe if there's improvement in that. Then there's a checkbox format for modifications, and that's to kind of guide to help us, think of ideas for intervention as well as to record what you did. And then after the intervention, you're just taking a second light meter reading and ideally doing an MN Read acuity test, but I'm pretty sure not everybody does that. There's a modification satisfaction survey to see if they're still in place, if there were barriers to implementation. Check on the quality of the new lighting experience and if they generalize that to make any additional changes in other areas of the home.
Do you find that people recognize that they've got a deficiency, or is it a surprise to them how much of a difference you can make with the lighting?
More often the latter, the surprise how much of a difference there can be. For some people, I have to say a small percentage, sometimes it doesn't make a huge difference, unfortunately. A lot of people are aware of that, yeah, my lighting's not that great. Or they'll think that, the chandelier over their dining room is just like, so it's so bright and amazing, but the light is just so far away from what they want to see. It's really not giving them the oomph, that they need. Or it's like the lady that I saw today who literally, she has such glare intolerance. Her whole house is like a cave. She's got this one little light that it's an OT light that's a floor lamp that she uses when she's trying to read, and otherwise she sits in the dark because it's just so uncomfortable for her. So we need to think about ways to direct the light properly for her and think about window treatments and what's she going to do when she goes outside and she has to ride in a car and different things like that. Okay, let's see what's next. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this other than just to say that we went through a pretty step-by-step fashion of developing this measure and working on the measure itself and the clinical utility and reliability, kind of step by step in those stages with different groups of people. Let's go to the next slide. Here we had a criterion of trying to meet 0.75 for our inter-rater reliability, and we did meet that for all the subsections. And then next you'll see test retest, which was also pretty good. We didn't have as good for the quality of the experience in one of the locations because we just had some people who changed their mind about what they liked and a little bit of outlier action going on there. But overall, it performed pretty well. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And this, you I give you the website. You have the document itself, and if you want to read about it, it's been published in HELA. Okay, let's go on. So here, just going to take you this through pretty quickly. So we're choosing a location. This lady, she spent all of her time in that chair in the kitchen. That's where she watches TV, where she eats, where she reads, she pays bills, she does her medication. Not everybody's like that, but I find that to be pretty common with people that I work with. So I'm making sure she's sitting in her favorite chair. Let's go to the next one. Now you can see I'm working on the description of the lighting environment. She's got that overhead light. She's got a window behind her and a window across from her, as well as an under-the-counter light that you see over the sink. Okay. Here I want to know about her access to outlets. And so she has done a pretty smart thing of putting her power strip up where she can see it. And so she's really got good access for a task plate on her table, which is what we ended up doing. Let's go to the next slide. So you can just kind of get a look. She's using compact fluorescents. The thing about those is they're slow to warm up, right? And so when she walks into her room and in the morning when it's darker or at night, it's going to take a while for it to be ready for her. And so that was something, turn on the light 5 minutes before you need it kind of thing. All right, let's go to the next slide. So that's a picture of the MN Reed. She read at pre-intervention with her current lighting at the 2200 level, both eyes open. Let's go to the next slide.
Oops.
And her baseline, lighting was 377 lux. Let's go to the next slide. So now we tried a number of lamps. I have 3 in my trunk. Can you see that little gadget? Just my nose is like pointing to it. That's got like white with a little, that's it. That's a really cool thing that's just come on the market. It's called the Lux IQ. It's got 2 sliders on the top piece, the left and the right. Yeah, Karen, you are so good.
Oh, thank you.
So the left one is a slider that I can use to control the level of illumination. The right slider is a lever I can use to control the color of the light. I can make it cooler, I can make it warmer, somewhere in between. And that helps me, I carry 3 lamps around, but there's just an infinite number. It helps me zero in on what their preference is. And then there's actually an app where you can enter those numbers in, and it spits out the lamps that need that configuration. So anyway, what we decided to do was add a task lamp and measure the lighting level. I think on the next slide, you might see a close-up. That's just a kind of a review of everything we did. And here's a review of what Beth did in her environment.
Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, keep going. Let's see what else. We're getting to what I want. Okay, so for the HELA, what we were able to do was identify pre- and post-intervention lighting levels, identified the critical print size, per the MN Reed, pre- and post-lighting intervention, and she had an increase in 1 line, which isn't a ton, but it can make a big difference, functionally in what people can do. We added a task lamp to her command central there at the kitchen table, and also she did not have a shade in her window, kitchen window that was opposite the table, and so we added that to reduce the glare. And just did a lot of education and increasing insight, for the client, really educating her about just how close the light needed to be to her reading material for her to get full benefit, as well as properly directing it and reducing the glare and that kind of thing. Okay, does that all make sense?
It seems like the insight would especially be helpful because then she can adjust it herself.
Right. Okay. Well, I hope I'm on the right track and this is this is helpful to people. Let's kind of shift gears now and talk about some lighting principles and a few ideas for various modifications. What slide are we on now, Karen? 65, you can see that. So we're almost done with the slide set. We're going to switch to the other one in a little bit. So things to think about when you're assessing lighting and thinking about modifications. The goal is to try to even it out as much as possible. Because if there's shadows in the pathway or on the surface of what they're trying to see, it's going to make it really difficult. Or if the light source, sometimes some light sources will create like a spotlight or halos or things like that. Do you know what I mean when I'm saying that?
Yeah.
Where it's just not even, like a flashlight would do, or some task lights will do that. And so we want the lighting to be even. We want to think about direct and reflected glare. So direct glare through the window, reflected glare off a glass top table, for example. And a way to deal with both of those problems is to have multiple light sources to even it out and to maybe reduce the glare, as well as shades that reduce glare but allow light to pass through, those kinds of things. Let's go to the next slide. You want to position the lighting directly over the task. The closer you place the lighting, that should be directed below eye level. If you have to distance between the light source and the reading material, you're going to double the lighting level with the same lamp. Okay, does that make sense? The closer you get the light source to what you want to see, the higher the lighting level it will be. But we don't want to point it in people's eyes, so that's why we want to keep it below eye level. For reading, if there's a disparity in their acuity, you want to direct the light over the shoulder of their strongest eye, and then we want to avoid casting shadows during writing activities, so you want to situate it opposite their dominant hand. Okay.
Lots of detail.
So yeah. So
I mean,
what's
just
next?
little things you wouldn't know.
Was that a question or just a thought?
Oh, it was just a lot of little things you wouldn't otherwise know.
Think about, right?
Right.
Okay, good. Do we have another slide, or is that it? Uh-oh.
There's that one, and then...
I just lost my internet connection. Hang on.
Oh.
What do you see next?
OT intervention, environmental modifications.
Okay.
Lighting preferences are individual. Allow client ample time to compare lighting options.
Right. So,
Do you get your connection back?
Yeah, hang on a second.
All right. Does anyone in the group typically look at these sorts of things with any consistency? I know that I don't, but I will from here on out.
Okay. Let's see. All right, looks like we got it back.
Oh, good.
I had trouble with our internet connection going down at home here. Did you get any responses to your query, Karen?
Yeah, no, nobody answered.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, no, yeah.
Yay! Hit the right button.
Good. Yeah, I think this is something
Okay.
we need to be more aware of.
All right, I'm back.
Yeah.
Was this the next slide? What was slide 67? Okay, good. All right, so yeah, we've already talked about those things. Okay, moving one closer. All right, so Yeah, one thing I find is that because lighting preferences are so individual that I need to give them time to, I plug in my 3 lamps into a extension cord, and I turn on and off the lights and let them look at their own stuff, whatever it is they want to look at, and use my light meter to compare, and it makes for a nice little intervention session where you're working on this is happening again. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulties here.
Well, while you work on that, let me just tell you what some of the comments are.
Yeah.
One person says she considers lighting, but not nearly in this detail. This is great information.
Good.
Nancy says, I often look at stairs and lighting and discuss lighting at night as well.
Good.
And wonders, how are your 3 lights different?
How are my what lights?
You said you have 3 lights. How are they different?
Oh, the 3 lights. So I have they're kind of different in terms of one is fairly intense and is cooler in terms of color, a bluer light, and then one is not quite as intense and kind of middle of the road, and then one is on the warmer end of the spectrum in terms of color.
And
it's just a sample. I can I use that Lux IQ device that I was showing you. And anyway, so I use a combination of things to kind of get a feel for what their preferences are. Okay.
And then Joe also writes, this is new to me, but it's great to add to any home assessment.
Good.
Oh, and then Anna has a question. She says, would all this take place during one session, or do you break up the assessment portion and intervention piece? How do you do that?
Well, that's a good question. So I am not doing, for the first time that I meet someone, a detailed lighting assessment. I'm generally observing. I'm kind of getting a feel for where their favorite spots in the house are, and really doing a combination of assessment intervention, in a subsequent session. Kind of goes hand in hand. So let's see what's on the next slide. Okay, good, yeah. All right, let's whiz these, and then maybe we'll have time for a few more questions. Okay, we can go to the next one.
Oh, bah. Sorry about that.
So we got to just bring up that other.
I don't have good skills with PowerPoints. Just a second.
You could close that and just pull up the one that is example photos.
Okay. And then
See, that's the last slide, so we're going to transition to that other slide set. You have to pull up the other document, other attachment, I think.
1 second. Yeah, this one I looked through and I just thought it was so interesting.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So let's go through these. All right. So knowing what we've learned tonight, let's look at this next slide with the love seat. This person sits facing us on the left side of that chair under that lamp. What do you think? Is that a good lighting setup?
They're right-eye dominant.
If you're right-eye dominant, yeah. What about the light source in particular? Picture where that person is sitting, their book is in their lap. How do we feel about the distance between the light source and her reading material?
It's a long way off.
It's a long way off, right? And it's not, how about how well it's directed?
It's pretty broad.
Right, right. So not ideal. not ideal. Let's go to the next one. So probably here, so probably what I would go for in that location is some kind of a gooseneck floor lamp that wouldn't be as pretty, but we could get the light source much closer to that person's reading material. Okay, here's another. You see, everybody see the desk. What's your feedback on this setup here? This person is right-handed.
It would cast a shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awfully intense in one spot, so creating glare.
There's a glare. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Well, if she's right-handed, it should be on the other side, right? Shouldn't the light be on where opposite her dominant hand?
Very good. Very good. She's sitting. What do you think about? What about the guideline for having it below her eye level?
Oh, yeah. It's not.
It's not, no. And so, where would you, if this was the lamp we had to live with, where would you reposition it?
Maybe where the calculator is?
Exactly. We'd want to get it down over there, see if we could talk her into rearranging a few things and get it down over there on the left. Very good. Okay, let's do the next one. Okay, we're going to do a little different thing here. This is a lady who, she had kind of a Swiss cheese visual loss pattern, which was really interesting, and a lot of glare problems. That is her chair where she sits to have her coffee and look out the window, but she has problems with glare, and so what we did was make a compromise. Go to the next slide. And had her for task where she was, writing a grocery list or paying bills or something. She used a tablecloth, and she sat in that chair. And for her coffee, it didn't really matter. She was just kind of enjoying the view, and the glare, wasn't so much of a problem for drinking coffee. So sometimes this is one of those examples where you need to think about task, environment, interaction, and what can you do to make it better. Now, that was a tablecloth that she had that was handy. Ideally, you get a solid one that didn't have a pattern. Okay, next slide. The other thing that I think about a lot is, that I'm sure you all do too, is just thinking about barriers that might contribute to falls, cuts, burns. Eventually, I'm going to get a peek in that person's refrigerator, because you can just learn so much about how things are going from their refrigerator, I think. How is it organized? Is there stuff, I have seen really so many things, just, oh my gosh, in refrigerators that can get a heads up on. And then we're looking at, are there burns and cuts on the counter? Any, wires, and just, standard things that everybody kind of looks for in the home setting. I'm really looking at organization and clutter, the degree of family and community support that they have, because often they have to delegate tasks to family, like transportation and that sort of thing. Hang on just a second. So let's see what's on the next slide.
Oh, wow.
So here's the office of someone that had accumulated a lot of life treasures over the years. And, you have to kind of go into a situation like this and say, well, how's this set working for you? Because maybe it is, If you saw my office, sometimes you would think I was not very organized. But she admitted that it didn't, and we had to kind of carve out a corner where she went to a lot and start there and just work on strategies that would help make her office space more visually accessible to her. And so that involved, she had a lot of homework around this and help from family to get rid of stuff she didn't need anymore, to mark files with bold tabs, to color code things. We worked on improving the lighting, but she needed a lot of simplification of her space to make this work for her.
Hey, we have a question, Monica. Do you ever come across clients who want to keep the light low to keep the electric bill down? And if so, how do you handle that?
Well, actually, there are charts that kind of show how much energy, how much it costs to run a little bit higher wattage or a different lamp, and so I can educate them that way. More often I find that they don't want to use natural lighting because of concerns about security and safety. They don't want people to see in their windows and that kind of thing. And so that's just something you work around and maybe try other ways to get the lighting level up. I don't get a lot of opposition, though, based on cost, I have to say. It doesn't happen. I can't even remember the last time that's come up for me.
Oh.
So, okay, what's next? Oh, here's another organization slide. This lady, she was the other end of the spectrum of the previous slide in terms of everything was in its place, and she was frustrated that she could not, she couldn't tell the black from the navy socks. This is her husband's sock drawer. And so she took the time. There's different things you can do for socks. There's sock clips, that you can clip them together and put them in the wash that way. She opted to sew a little loop in the toe of all the navy socks so she could match them in the first place. And then black was on the left, white in the middle, blue on the right. And that she could keep it all together that way. So you'd be surprised. I'm always surprised how different things are important to different people, And that was one of the top of her list things she wanted to work on. Okay, what's next? All right, here's a whole series of just appreciation of importance of contrast. So let's say you're having mashed potatoes and chicken for dinner tonight, and you're putting it on this white plate. That's not going to work very well for someone who has, low contrast sensitivity. So look at the next slide. You might put that dinner on this plate and see how it's just going to pop out so much more easily. What's next? Maybe you'd have, steak and green beans on this plate. So ideally, someone who's got low vision, they need a solid white plate and a solid darker plate, depending on what they're eating. And placemats don't hurt either. Okay, what's next? Contrast. I just saw a lady who moved into a new independent living center, and they serve their coffee in black coffee cups. I just don't get that. I don't know. I'm going to see if I can put something in the suggestion box. But you can see what she can't pour her coffee independently, and she has to bring her own white coffee cup down so she can see what the heck she's doing.
Oh.
So it makes a huge difference. What's next? This is an organization strategy. This lady, she had drawers and drawers full of costume jewelry. And she just couldn't, she had them marked in little, cursive pencil labels that she couldn't see. And what her daughter ended up doing when she came every week to set up her meds, she set up a rotating little supply of earrings for her so she could wear different ones every day. Okay, another organization idea. I do a lot of labeling and marking. Have to do that, with appliances, TV remotes, different things. Have to do it in collaboration with the client, keep it simple. Think about what they can remember and if they're using tactile input, what their capabilities are there. And then it needs to be durable, and you have to teach. They're going to fall off eventually, so you have to teach them how to redo it. So I'll show you a few examples real quick here. So here's a microwave. You want to first check that is electrician's tape and a Sharpie. That's all that is. And I'm asking the person how they use the microwave. This particular lady could see the start button and the cancel button, but she couldn't read the numbers very well, and all she used it for was to heat her coffee. So that's what we marked. You don't want to mark stuff they don't use because it's just too much to deal with visually. Let's see what's next. This lady needed to use tactile input, and so I have one bump dot on the 1 and 3 bump dots on the 3, and then we used Velcro and tape and different things for some of the other controls that she needed to use. Let's go to the next one, Karen. Here's somebody who had really low vision, and all she was going to do, and that's kind of a blurry photo, but she's just going to match the chunks of tape. And then she knows, mostly she cooked a little bit above medium. She wants it high, she's going to crank it to the right. And if she wants it lower, she knew to do it the other direction. And so I'm putting these labels on and then checking and double checking that they can use them accurately. And on the next visit, I'm going to check again. It's not something you want to just do and then assume they've got it. Here's a washer dryer. So we're doing this for really everything that people need to access. Okay, what's next? Another idea, a lot of dinners in a box. We ended up using different color tape, but she could see sometimes bright yellow is a good contrasting color for people, and she could not only did she not know what she was opening, but she didn't know where to open it. So her family was going to set up her meals in a box like this.
I work with low vision kids, and I find that a lot of them seem to see red. I mean, that's just one color.
Do they?
I mean, is that common? Just red seems like a popular color to me.
Yeah. I mean, most of my folks really like black and white.
Black and white?
And it's in part because with macular degeneration, their color is affected also. And a lot of these age-related problems have color issues. But, yeah, it's good to play around with color sometimes and see what works for them. Should we keep going or should we wrap up, Karen? I don't want to keep people.
I don't know how everyone else feels. I think these are fascinating, though.
Yeah, keep going.
All right. We just have probably we might go 5 minutes over here. All right, so this is a huge bank of mailboxes, and the person can't find their mailbox and read the numbers, and so we marked those with bump dots, and then also in the next slide we marked her cubby where she would get, like the newsletter and the activities for the week and that sort of thing, just with a red strip, so it popped out at her. Next slide. This lady, I had put red tape. Red worked for her too, and I put it on 11 light switches in her condo because she moved into a new place, could not turn on a light because she couldn't find them because it was all white on white. So we added good contrast for her. I do a lot of what I call candy striping of grab bars. I don't happen to have a picture of that, but that's something you all might want to think about. You've got a white grab bar on a white, tub insert, fiberglass or whatever it is. They can't use, if they can't see the grab bar, it's not going to do that much good for them. So we want to make sure they can find it. Okay.
Ellie has an interesting comment. She says she's found that red dinnerware has increased the PO intake for residents with low vision and dementia where she works.
Interesting, because they can see their food probably. That's really interesting.
It is. That's really interesting.
Okay, what's next? Okay, here's this lady was not finding the landing very safely, landing hard, missing the step, and so she had a a contrasting rug that she put at the bottom of the steps there. Sometimes I put Velcro or something on the handle so that they have a tactile notification too of when they're at the bottom on the railing. Okay, so the next one is just to kind of give you a heads up to think about how degree of contrast changes depending on the weather. So here, you know, maybe some of my folks really, they can do okay driving on a clear day, but you compare that on with a gloomy day in the next slide. Same location. You know, it's just much harder to make out edges and maybe seeing an oncoming gray car or something like that. So you want to think about that sort of thing. Okay, that's good. All right, so I think I'm nearing the end here. I'm leaving you with some resources. There is a lot out there on low vision. There's some free online courses, lots of great continuing ed. There's the listserv, several good texts, certification opportunities. You know, it might be more than you want, but and certainly I also sent Karen a list of OTs state by state that are certified, you know, have certification from AOTA. You can get specialty certification and board certification in 9 different areas from AOTA, and low vision has the most people who are certified, who have a specialty certification. There's more. The very most are the pediatric board certifications. But there's a number of us out there, but scattered. You know, there's only, I think I'm one of 2 in our state. But there are lots of other people who work in low vision who have expertise. And I think it's good. Just like, I mean, if you're working with someone, you want to get a start on whatever you can do to modify their environment. It's really great. But you know, I know I'm always, if I need detailed home modifications, you know, really big guns with contractors and things like that, I'm calling Emily Somerville and different people that I know here in town doing that sort of work. But hopefully I've given you some ideas to think about and just maybe an understanding of what a low vision specialist might be able to do in terms of the environment. We're also working with people on how to use their optical devices properly and visual search and scan strategies and eccentric viewing strategies for people with peripheral and central vision loss. And there's just a lot that we as a profession have to offer. So hopefully you can find somebody in your area that might be doing this. And if you can't, I might be able to help you find that person.
I sent out right before this started, I sent out a copy of the registry as well as at least one of the vision evaluations that you sent me. One of my we couldn't get to put together to attach, but I'll work on getting one that I can attach. So I know this has been very
good.
I don't know about everyone else, but I didn't realize how many, you know, how much there was to learn in this area.
There is, you know, and we kind of scratched the surface for that graduate certificate program at UAB that you see there, you know, under certification opportunities. That now, when I did it, it was a 20 credit program, you know, that took me about 3 years. We spent 3 weeks on visual field, for example, in one course.
Wow.
Oh my God, it was fabulous. They've got it down to 15 credits now, and you just take one class at a time. And, you know, for me, it was just fantastic. So they're just like anything. There's a lot to learn about home modifications, what you all do, and just about any area of practice. There's so much depth knowledge out there.
You know, I have one more question before you go, though. In most of these pictures, there were women with the that you worked on visual stuff. Is it predominantly more of a female thing? I mean, or
well, macular degeneration occurs more commonly in women. A typical low vision client is female. I have worked with a number of men, but I have to say most of my folks are 80 and over, and women live longer, and there's all kinds of reasons why most of my clients are women. Probably the neuro-ophthalmologist sends me more men than women, you know, that they have some kind of vascular problem that's resulted in a stroke and, you know, wiped out their optic nerve or something, you know. And so, yeah, but with the age-related vision diagnoses, the vast majority that I see are women. I see quite a few more men. More men might have, you know, something like glaucoma, but yeah.
One more thing too. I got another question. Are there any specific courses or certifications you recommend to increase knowledge base and credibility so that low vision recommendations can be incorporated into an overall home accessibility assessment? And then what would be the best way to get that basic information?
Well, can you say that again? So you're asking for
specific courses or certifications to increase knowledge base and credibility so that you can put low vision recommendations into an overall home assessment? Is there anything?
Into the assessment. Well, I guess my bias is that certainly the home assessment and intervention is a huge piece of it, but it's only part of what we're doing to provide services to people with low vision. And so I may not be totally understanding the question. Certainly, if you wanted to get a start on role of OT, you know, with the low vision population, I'd probably recommend that you hit one of Mary Warren's, you know, weekend courses that she offers on, you know, low vision rehab, and she'll give you a nice comprehensive nutshell of what OTs do in that area. To me, is the question really, what do I need to do to become more able to work with clients with low vision, or to have low vision as a primary area of practice, or not so much?
What do you say, Joe? It sounds like to just be able to be competent in putting low vision recommendations.
Yeah, not to be specifically certified in low vision, but to be able to incorporate that into, you know, the sorts of things that this group is doing, like, you know, an overall home assessment where someone that, you know, maybe in a wheelchair for one reason or another, but they also mention that they have glaucoma or something like that, so that we can just make basic recommendations, not as specific as some other things. Right.
So, I mean, I guess to start, I would kind of review this material and get it. Try one or both of these assessments with clients like that and see how you do. I mean, I don't think they're difficult to learn to use. There's a lot that you can read, you know, in terms of self-directed study out there. There is a ton on all of these topics, and those textbooks would be helpful that I have listed there. The Warren and Barstow text in particular. And I can send Karen a full references for each of those if that would be helpful. Unfortunately, we just did a 3-hour workshop at AOTA in Nashville that focused on this topic, and we had people, you know, that were doing a lot of home modifications and home health, and as well as people who were low vision specialists in that workshop. I don't know if you think there'd be a big draw for this, Beth and I could think about, doing a revamp of it that would be geared more to what you all are interested in, at some point somewhere. You'll kind of have to watch for, what's coming up, at AOTA in the spring. Possibly there might be something, but I don't know of anything really that's in the can at this point that you could just access. There are self-directed learning online courses through AOTA for low vision too that would be, might be helpful.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question though. Now, is this reimbursable by insurance? Do you have any trouble being reimbursed for this? It sounds like a good source of referrals.
No, we have no. It's all just OT, and in the context of function and safety and adaptations and building independence.
So when you do bill for, do you bill insurance for what you do?
Oh yeah, I bill Medicare primarily, but we also, have other providers that we work with.
So when you bill Medicare, you bill it more as ADLs, building independence. You don't bill it specifically for vision therapy or low vision.
No. It's just OT. It's OT. We're adapting the environment. We're changing the way they do tasks. We're delegating tasks. We're educating the caregiver. We're modifying the home environment. It's an area of expertise, and the strategies are a little bit different. But how I was trained is that it's just good OT.
Monica, you build under Medicaid. Hi, Monica. Thanks for coming and talking to us.
Sure.
I think it's important to say you build under Medicare Part B, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do bill under Medicare Part B.
Yeah.
And then what are some of the other providers outside of Medicare? Would just private pay, would they pay for this?
Yeah, sometimes private pay, United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield. And we have, if I get a referral for, let's say, someone who has Medicaid, unfortunately, Missouri, we have very limited Medicaid resources for OT. And I can refer them to other low vision resources, like, if you all are in a bigger city, you probably have some good low vision resources that you could, have your clients access. We have the St. Louis Society for the Blind and Visually Impaired. We have a state agency called the Rehab Services for the Blind. And so, and even the patients that I'm working with, I'm referring them to those community resources anyway, because they have things that support groups, and we can get funding for equipment sometimes, optical devices sometimes. They have expertise. If I have somebody who really wants to get into technology, I'm pretty good at a base level, but if they want to get into things in more detail, I'll refer them to somebody that we have at the St. Louis Society for the Blind for that. So, transportation resources.
So who do you work for you get referrals? Do you have your own business, or do you work outpatient or home health university?
I work for Washington University and teach a good chunk of my time. I'm on the faculty there. But we have a community-based practice that we operate out of our program. And so it's all, we have a lot of interesting services that we provide, and low vision is one of them. We have another OT who under Part B works, she is busy full-time with our movement disorders clinic at WashU and the patients that are served by people with Parkinson's and Huntington's and dystonia. We have a wheelchair and seating clinic. We have a parenting with disabilities clinic.
Oh.
So it's kind of niche-y type stuff. We have a pediatrics unit or group too. But that's the context that we have a program, coordinator who is amazing, and
Do you have a home mods?
pardon me?
Do you have home mods? A home mod knit?
We do.
Oh, I'll have to catch up with them. Well, there are a lot of comments about last one as well. This is awesome. Thank you so much, Monica, for spending some time with us. And this really opened my eyes, so to speak, about a lot of the things that I need to be looking for and how to change things around.
Well, good. Well, my hope was that it would be time well spent, because Monday nights are precious after you've worked all day. So.
Yes. Thank you so much. More comments about thank you. It looks like not everybody got the email I sent out, so I can send that again. But
yeah, and I think I can't remember if I have my email on here somewhere. If anybody has more questions, or you ever want to just brainstorm about people that you're seeing. There we go.
Yeah.
There it is.
So can I send these PowerPoints out to the people who are here today?
Sure.
Okay, wonderful. Lots of thank yous in the chat box.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. And thanks to Jackie for getting the ball rolling, and for Karen for being an expert PowerPoint driver.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica.
You're welcome.
It was just such a great use of our time the last hour and a half or so. That was just awesome.
Well, good. Well, I'll hope to hear from some of you, and good luck to you. And
more thank yous on the side here for the chat.
Our paths will cross.
We can only hope.
Okay. All right. Have a great night.
You too. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
That was wonderful. Jacqueline, thank you for setting that up.
Oh, no problem. So here's a question for you guys. I know Susie Starks. That's the one Monica was saying. She does the work for WashU on home modifications.
Oh.
And she's the one that created the I Hope. I did work with her in her research for a little bit, so I can ask her if she can come and talk to us. But then we need to come up, what do we want her to be talking? Is about I Hope or, assessments. I participate in one of her research as an interventionist, and she was trying to get Medicare to pay for the assistive devices in the home environment to prevent falls, and she was trying to justify that in doing that, Medicare was not going to spend much money with people going to the hospital and fall. And so anyway, I don't know what you guys would like me to ask her to, come and talk to us about it. But I can certainly talk to her.
Z says, yes, please do assessment and intervention planning.
Okay.
I would still love to know what her research is, and then if she needs, I do home assess. I've been doing loads of home assessments. If there's anything I can do to support her research, I would love to send it her way, because nothing that I'm doing is going to anybody other than my clients.
Yeah, she's very great, really.
Yeah, Nancy says research to help justify the value and savings to the health system.
Uh-huh.
It,
And just to add a little bit about Susie Stark, this is Susan speaking right now. I used to be a student of hers. I'm a recent graduate from Washington University program in OT in 2013. And right now, while having worked under her in her research, I am a research scientist doing kind of similar things in Atlanta right now. So if anybody has any kind of questions before it gets to Susie, like I'm here available for anybody to be a resource if needed. So
if you would, I would, as far as the research goes, I mean, if you could give me an idea of how things should be structured, I would love to add, um, you know, what I'm doing, what I'm seeing to your research. Right now, for some reason, I'm doing morbidly obese people. I got my first 650-pound man a couple weeks ago, and I just got a 560-pound man last week. I don't know what's up with that, but I mean, I would love to throw in some of what I'm learning, you know, to help the greater good and help with funding for all of us.
sure, I think there's just a wealth of information and just being done in that regard and research. But as far as making that relevant to the practitioners actually, you know, engaging in the interventions and seeing patient care, I think there's great potential in kind of strengthening that bridge. But I'm strictly here doing research. I don't do any patient care or home visits or anything like that. So this is kind of what I'm interested in, kind of using my experience and expertise in this group.
I would love to hear some of your research too.
Yeah, right now working on a couple grants to get myself going. I've only been here for a little over a year now, so kind of new, but there's a lot to learn and there's a big learning curve to it. So it's kind of doing what I can right now.
Leo also writes there's quite a few things I'm rebuilding together too, as far as home modifications, but just in the nonprofit world. So something all of us should probably look into.
Mm-hmm.
Before this was just, I just love this. But before we go, I know for the codas, Louie's got some announcements to make.
Yes, I want to say hi to everybody, but we've got our subgroup set up. It's called CODA's Role in Home Modifications, and we're hoping that a number of people, I think Karen's going to send out an invitation to everybody, and just want to invite you to please join and participate, because we'd really like to get your input and your opinions on helping us define the scope of practice for CODAs and home modifications, and what you would be looking for us to perform to be of assistance to you. And because it seems to be a real big gray area right now. So if you could all do that, that'd be great. Appreciate it.
Yep, and I'll put that in the next one. In fact, I need to re-email some of this stuff. It sounds like not everybody got it.
Okay.
And if we can keep working on our groups, I know that it's hard to find the time, and I'm guilty of having trouble finding time too. Next week we don't have, or the first Monday in September, I'll have to take a look at the schedule. I think that's Labor Day. So I believe we're going to move it back maybe to the second Monday. But that it's going to be a business development meeting. And so we're going to be working more on talking about business and developing and talking to some of the groups about presenting what they're doing and taking it from there.
Okay.
Okay.
But thank you all for coming. And again, Jacqueline, thank you for setting this up. I would love Susan Starks to chime in and say what she's doing as well, because I think it could do nothing but help us all.
Yes, yes, no problem at all. I will talk to her.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good night, all.
Good night.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Good night, all.